AI is going to leave 90% of the world behind. AI start to permeate every aspect of our economy. There's going to be trillions of agents automating everything everywhere. AI is going to effectively be the operating system for the new world. I talk to ChatGPT probably 5 to 6 hours a day. Crypto and AI are the perfect match. We haven't enticed mainstream users. We've invested billions, but fewer than 1% of people in the world use crypto for anything else other than speculation. Most crypto protocols were effectively solutions looking for problems. They weren't providing any real economic value. Startups were spending over 80% of their capital on compute at the time. Who am I to take on AWS? I realized that this was a once in a lifetime opportunity to solve a hair on fire problem in a multi-trillion-dollar industry. The internet is controlled by like 3 to 5 companies. Decentralization fixes that. 80% of businesses fail to scale. Decentralized networks are up to 90% cheaper than centralized ones. A solution that's 10 times better, faster, and cheaper than anything else out there, disrupting a multi-trillion-dollar market. Most decentralized compute networks will fail. AWS is going to be dead in 10 years.
Hello guys, so we are now in Dubai and here with you Anna Tutova, CEO of Coinstelegram, and our guest Tory Green, who is co-founder and CEO of IO.net. It's Internet of GPUs, so as well as they say Airbnb for decentralized GPUs. So great to have you here, Tory.
It's so great to be here. Been a big fan and very excited to be on the pod.
So you have quite a diverse background. You had military training at West Point, as well studied economics at Stanford. You had leadership roles at Disney and Fox. You've been in fintech, venture capital, as well investment banking at Merrill Lynch and Oaktree. So can you tell how did you discover crypto first, and as well how all these experiences shape your approach to building 1 billion decentralized GPUs powerhouse?
Sure. So every step of my career has been building towards IO.net. West Point taught me leadership. Investment banking taught me finance. Stanford taught me analytical rigor. And being a operator taught me how to build a world-class tech company. But while all these were helpful, I kind of knew that they weren't really what I was looking for. I didn't really find my passion until I discovered crypto in 2016. And like many of us, I completely went down the rabbit hole. But despite being enamored by the technology, I felt like most crypto protocols were effectively solutions looking for problems. That is, they weren't providing any real economic value. This all changed in 2019 when I became the COO of a machine learning fintech. And that's when I truly understood the stranglehold that centralized AI had on tech. They owned every aspect of the value chain, from data to models to compute. And they were really using it to extract so much from the consumers. They were imposing these restrictive covenants. They were restricting access to essential equipment. And worst of all, they were charging really, really high prices. In fact, I think a study by Andreessen came out that showed that startups were spending over 80% of their capital on compute at the time. 80%, that's absolutely unsustainable. And quite frankly, it was crowding out innovation. Now, while I was passionate, I was hesitant to do anything about this, most notably because I had a comfortable job and, who am I to take on AWS? But that's when I had a realization that became an obsession, that decentralized compute networks were not just the best way to solve this problem, but perhaps the only way. And that was really the point of no return. I realized that this was a once in a lifetime opportunity to solve a hair on fire problem in a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And so I quit my job, and that's what led to IO.net.
And as well, from the point of discovering crypto, you mentioned that it happened in 2016. So,
that's right, yeah, class of 2016.
How did you discover it? Was it from your friends?
So it's actually a really funny story. We had invested, actually right before I got to the VC I was at, we invested in one of the guys that had actually founded like Bitcoin LA. So he was a big Bitcoin guy. Mm-hmm. And this was before even like DeFi, NFTs, any of this stuff. So crypto was very new. And we had taken a bet on this industry. And to be honest, I didn't really understand crypto all that well. And I was helping this guy out in sort of an operational role. I was helping him build a company, sort of coaching him there. And one day I asked him to explain crypto to me. And he said, crypto is everything that people think the internet is, but actually isn't. And I was like, what do you mean? And he explained to me that the idea of the internet was to sort of like democratize information, to democratize the world. And that's what everyone thinks the internet is. But the truth is it's not, right? The internet is controlled by like 3 to 5 companies. And he was saying that decentralization fixes that. And then once I started going down the rabbit hole, I saw how decentralization fixes not only the internet, but it fixes money through Bitcoin, it fixes finance through DeFi, it fixes entertainment through NFTs. And so that's what really sort of sparked my interest. But like I said, when I really got to understand AI and realized that, wow, this is probably the most important use case for crypto of all, it's to effectively decentralize intelligence.
And did you buy Bitcoin at the time or any other
So
cryptocurrency?
I actually bought Ethereum first. I was slow to Bitcoin. I was skeptical. And crypto didn't really, it wasn't until people started talking about, sort of decentralization of the internet. For some reason, I got that. So I bought ETH. And then I remember someone said to me once, he said, like, you should buy Bitcoin as dummy insurance. And so I bought some Bitcoin as well. But when I really started to sort of dig into it, I think I read some, The Internet of Value or something by Andre. That's when I understood, like, I think it takes someone years to really understand crypto, like to understand what decentralization is, or at least then, because now people talk a lot more about decentralization. But then when people talked about crypto, it was really, they were talking about things like immutability. They didn't really understand the blockchain. And so I think when I understood the decentralization of money and why it's so important, that's when I invested in Bitcoin as well.
You probably should be more happy now with your Bitcoin investment.
I mean, I've been DCAing since 2016, so I don't time the market. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with with most of it overall.
Yeah, and as well, so you were the CEO first of IO.net, and then you stepped in as CEO at the pivotal moment for the company when Ahmad Shadid left. So how your previous operational experiences prepare you for the scaling of decentralized GPUs of more than 318,000?
Everything you've been told about scaling is wrong. When I took over as the CEO of IONET, I knew I had a very difficult challenge in front of me. We had just listed on Binance, and there was a lot of potential, a lot of hype around the token, and we had to live up to this potential. Unfortunately, scaling a business is extremely difficult. In fact, stats show that 80% of businesses fail to scale, and there's a reason they call this the Valley of Death. The good thing, though, was I know a secret from my decade of being a VC and a Web 2 COO. And that's that it's not technology that scales, but operational discipline. And so what I did was I came in and I put in several best practices that I'd learned as an operator. So I set up a quarterly executive meeting. So it was an offsite where everyone would come and we would talk strategy. I set up recurring meeting cadences, so weekly team meetings, daily stand-ups, weekly recurring one-on-ones, and I assigned KPIs and OKRs to every team member. And this discipline really, really paid off. It helped us grow from 4 million in T&E to over 30 million. It helped us get over 80 Web 2 and Web 3 partners. And it helped us build one of the world's largest decentralized compute networks. And so while innovation got us started, it was operational discipline that took us global.
Yeah, that's great. Discipline and as well KPIs are really important.
It was a fun path.
Yeah, so sometimes it's great when a CEO can substitute CEO. Yeah, and as well, you mentioned that a lot of startups spend quite a lot on computing. So you solve this problem. You are 90% cheaper than AWS. But as well, you cited 510 exaflop gap in the clusters. So how do you solve this problem, and how do you manage to make the decentralized computing cheaper?
We are approaching the most severe infrastructure crisis in the history of humanity. AI is just absolutely ravenous. The demand for AI is unprecedented. It's it's doubling every 3.4 months. So that's a 10x growth every 18 months and 100x growth every 3 years. We've never seen anything like it. And traditional cloud providers just can't keep up with this. There aren't enough GPUs, and building new data centers is slow and costly. So this is a problem because it's causing major issues for consumers. Long wait times, limited choice, and worst of all, high costs. In fact, I recently spoke with a founder of a seed stage startup. So seed stage that's spending $700,000 per month on cloud compute. That is unsustainable, and it's crowding out innovation. Now, fortunately, decentralized compute networks like IONET have a solution. As you mentioned, like an Airbnb for GPUs, we pool underutilized computing resources from across the globe. So that could be anything from independent data centers to just regular consumer laptops. And we put them in one network. And this brings all kind of benefits. It brings unlimited scalability, it brings better performance, and best of all, much, much cheaper costs. In fact, decentralized networks are up to 90% cheaper than centralized ones. And just imagine the possibilities there. A solution that's 10 times better, faster, and cheaper than anything else out there, disrupting a multi-trillion-dollar market. That's what we're building at IONET.
Yeah, and as well, how do you ensure the balance between scalability and security when pulling these GPUs globally, and especially for the latency-sensitive AI tasks?
Great question. Most decentralized compute networks will fail. And that's primarily for the reason you've mentioned. The core benefit of a decentralized compute network is its broad geographic reach. For example, at IONET, we have thousands of GPUs in over 130 countries. But like you said, how do you ensure security when you're dealing with anonymous GPUs from all across the globe? Well, at IONET, we do this in 3 ways. The first is we have proof of work. And what proof of work basically does is it ensures that every GPU that comes on the network is effectively verified and reliable. The second is proof of time lock. Now, as I mentioned with proof of work, we've assured that the GPUs are reliable, but how do we prove that the work they're doing is in fact reliable? And that's where proof of time lock comes in. It's basically a method of cryptographically verifying task execution so customers can know that they're getting what they paid for. And then finally, we have a global mesh VPN. And what this does is effectively, if any node is malicious or goes down, the system is smart and it will automatically reroute to a new one. And so that is how we really are building a global network with an enterprise level of security.
Yeah, and as well, so with this architecture and with this proof of work and proof of time lock, you manage as well to set up GPUs just in 90 seconds, while centralized companies require weeks to set up GPUs. So can you tell more? How do you achieve that? And as well, how do you ensure reliability?
Sure. AWS is going to be dead in 10 years. Centralized clouds are outdated, they're slow, and they're expensive. I've spoken to so many founders who are waiting weeks to get GPU access. At IONET, we flipped that on its head. Anyone in the world can get access to high-quality compute clusters in fewer than 90 seconds. Now, the problem with this is, once again, you have to maintain reliability. How do you maintain reliability in a decentralized network? How do you maintain reliability when you don't know who your compute providers are, when you don't know where their GPUs are? And once again, it's the same 3 solutions. The proof of work verifies that the GPUs are indeed real GPUs. The proof of time lock verifies that they are doing the work you paid them for. And then the global mesh VPN is the safety valve. So if any node is malicious or if it goes offline, you can reroute. And that's how we maintain over 95% reliability in a decentralized network.
Yeah, and as well, so you mentioned that centralized computing will be dead, and as well, your competitors, decentralized computing, may be dead as well. So that's like highly competitive industry.
Yeah.
And we see, for example, other companies like Render, Aether, Akash Network, and others, they as well offer decentralized compute. So how do you differentiate and how do you uniquely set up these GPUs for AI workloads?
So here's the dirty little secret of decentralized compute. GPUs alone aren't enough. A single GPU is effectively useless for AI. Almost every complex AI task requires dozens to hundreds of GPUs to function. For instance, if OpenAI used a single computer to train GPT-3, it would have taken him 10 years. Now, the act of bringing all these GPUs together is called clustering. And clustering is actually not difficult if GPUs are in the same physical location. So for instance, the very large data centers that Amazon, Google, Microsoft have, they can literally just plug these GPUs in together. Now, unfortunately, until recently, no one knew how to cluster GPUs in different physical locations. And this is a big problem because the whole point of a decentralized network is to be spread around the globe. And that's what IONET figured out that we were the first in the world to do. We created a technology that could take 50 GPUs from Iceland, 50 from Canada, and 50 from Australia, and we can put them into a single global supercluster. And this allows us to access complex AI workloads. And it's also one of the reasons that you see a lot of the other DePINs like Aether, Filecoin, Render, they're actually suppliers on our network because we provide them access to AI. And so any network can hand you an instrument, but at IONET, we're effectively conducting the orchestra.
Yeah, and as well, you mentioned that you operate in over 140 countries, and as well that there are risks when you don't know about GPUs and etc. So how do you solve this geographic bias, and especially in the emerging markets?
AI is going to leave 90% of the world behind, and here's why. Access to GPUs is unfairly limited to wealthy countries, and there's a lot of reasons for this. There is limited availability, there's high costs, and there's stringent KYC requirements. I've spoken to so many founders from places like Nairobi or Mumbai that are either forced to pay ridiculous premiums or wait weeks for GPUs. And quite frankly, this is very unfair. It's unfair to founders, it's unfair to the economy, and it's crowding out innovation and widening the global innovation gap. IONET solves this by just building a global network of GPUs. We've got thousands of GPUs in over 138 countries, and that means wherever you are in the world, there's a GPU close to you. And that means that you can instantly get access, and you can do it paying much, much cheaper prices. And so while other networks may be managing geographic bias, we're systematically eliminating it because we believe that AI should be free for everyone everywhere.
Yeah, and as well, so you introduced the verification for enterprise-grade suppliers. So how do you achieve this without compromising decentralization?
Great question. Vitalik was wrong about this. It's possible to have both quality and decentralization. Look at IONET. We have a global network, thousands of GPUs, 138 countries. And we manage this network with 95% reliability. Now, how do we do that? How do we keep that level of security and performance with that level of decentralization? Well, the core way to do it is through our tiered supply model. And the best analogy for a tiered supply model is like a rewards program. Anyone can join the network. As long as you pass the proof of work verification, you can get on the network and you can get a basic membership. You can get rewards for that. Now, if you want to get a premium membership, you need to get the enterprise grade certification. And this involves things like providing uptime guarantees, security audits, things like that. But if you get that, you can effectively get a much higher reward base. And so what this effectively does is it lets IONET to successfully balance both decentralization and security.
And as well, you are building on Solana and you use Solana Pay for the payments and staking. So why Solana?
We process thousands of transactions a day. So we needed a network that's fast, affordable, and reliable. Solana was ideal for that. It can process tens of thousands of transactions per second. Its low latency is ideal for inference tasks, and its low cost help us keep fees on the network down. But perhaps more importantly, one of the things I really like about Solana is that it has such a great community. It has a great community of builders. It has a great community of developers. It has a great community of investors. And so while yes, we chose Solana for the technology, perhaps more importantly, we chose them for the community and the vibes.
Yeah, that's for sure. Because now there is quite a lot of speculation that Solana is a meme coin chain and like there is nothing important happening, but there is still happening quite a lot.
I think it's ideal for DePIN, especially with the high volume use cases there.
Yeah, and can you tell us more about your own token, IO token? So it's used for the payments, staking, and as well governance. So how is mint and burn mechanics as well ensure the fair distribution of the incentives between GPU suppliers and as well AI developers?
Sure. Very few people understand tokenomics. One of the core roles of a token in a DePIN is to align incentives. Because this is easy to get wrong. If you provide too many rewards to suppliers, you're going to hyperinflate the token, and it's going to destroy value. If you don't provide enough rewards, or if you provide too many rewards to consumers, then there's no reason for suppliers to be on the network. And so the question is, how do you balance these? Burn and mint is considered by most to be the best way to do this. And this is something that was pioneered by Multicoin, one of our investors, and suggested to us. What Burn and Mint basically does is whenever a consumer comes on the network and they buy compute, that money that they use to buy compute is burned. And so it reduces the token supply and puts downward pressure. Now, at the same time, new tokens are minted in a steady stream, and you can see this on our tokenomics, that will allow suppliers to keep being rewarded. And when you put these two together, it really balances the economics and makes the system work.
Yeah, that's great. And as well, you recently launched IO Intelligence. So can you tell more about it and how does it work?
Sure. Intelligence is the next evolution of IONet and perhaps AI. The first phase of IONet was about democratizing access to GPUs. But if we want to decentralize AI, that's not enough. We also have to democratize access to models, because today, models are generally hoarded by massive corporations and well-funded research institutions. Now, Intelligence solves this. It's a plug-and-play AI platform that gives developers instant API access to dozens of the best pre-trained models, from things like text generation, audio generation, AI agents. And this really allows them to use these models at a low cost and a high availability. And so ultimately at IONet, our goal is not just to democratize compute access, it's to democratize access to intelligence itself.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. And as well, you mentioned as well the potential of decentralized AI, decentralized compute for other industries, like, for example, healthcare, like medical imaging, as well energy industry with smart grids. So do you consider that decentralized compute may be as critical as electricity nowadays?
Decentralized compute will be significantly more significant than electricity. And that's because electricity transformed our homes, but decentralized compute and AI will transform our minds. If you look at so both AI and electricity are foundational technologies. They are impacting every industry: healthcare, finance, manufacturing, transportation, you name it. But AI is really the first technology that really goes inwards. It's going to fundamentally improve human cognition. It's going to improve our memories. Imagine being able to instantly recall every book you've ever read, every conversation you've ever had. It's going to help us be more creative. Imagine a world where anyone can write a symphony, anyone can direct a feature film, anyone can write complex code. It's going to make us better decision makers. Imagine having a thought partner that intimately knows your decision-making progress and can identify subconscious biases. the world that we're going to see with AI is going to be so fundamentally unrelatable. And researchers estimate that it's going to be driven by trillions of AI agents, both internal and external. And I think that's one of the main missions of IONET. We understand, and actually I wrote an article about this 5 years ago. This coming wave cannot be supported by centralized compute. Only decentralized compute can do it. And so is decentralized compute and AI going to be like electricity? No, it's going to be much bigger because electricity connected machines, but AI is going to connect everything.
Do you see any threats of AI in the future?
Man, yes, there will be threats, but like anything, it will be a tool. And so people will use it for good and people will use it for bad. And, there's a lot of talk about things like AI alignment and, what people will use AI for. And it's really just impossible to tell. But I believe that the impact of any given technology on human history has been overwhelmingly positive. So while there will be problems, I think that the benefits will greatly outweigh them.
Yeah, that's true. And as well, do you have any predictions for AGI? When we will see it?
I asked ChatGPT this question. So fundamentally, I don't believe in AGI, at least the path we're on now. And that's because if you actually understand how AI works, it's not thinking. What it is it's pattern recognition, right? So, let's say you have a sentence. I cooked my toast in the blank. It's going to solve that sentence for you, right? And it's going to know that the answer is probably like microwave or oven or something like that, or toaster. It's not going to be like cat. You don't cook toast in a cat. And so it's guessing, it's pattern recognition. Now, obviously that's oversimplifying it, but that is effectively what it is at its core. And it's not even doing that, right? What it's really doing is it's computers can only talk on ones and zeros. So it's just saying 001, 001, 001 is followed by a guess. Now that said, I asked ChatGPT, I said, do you think you'll ever become self-aware? And it said, no, I don't. Not with, LLMs, what we're doing now is not on that path. But then it said something interesting, that humanity will think I'm self-aware in several years. And then it posed a crazy question to me, and it said, how do you know that you are conscious and that you're not just part of your programming? And so that made me step back. And it's like, will it become conscious or self-aware? The counter question is, do we really know what consciousness is?
Yeah, that's quite interesting take. Yeah. And as well, on the side of IO.net, can you share what's next? Like maybe you can share your latest partnerships and your future plans for the development?
Our goal at IONET is simple. It's to take down AWS and capture a huge share of the multi-trillion-dollar cloud computing market. Most people laugh when I tell them this. They say, how can a small Web3 startup take on a giant like AWS? Well, I'll tell you exactly how. The reason that companies like AWS are so successful is because they offer scope. They don't just offer compute, they offer everything a developer needs. Compute, networking, databases, storage, AI/ML tools, all in a single platform. And this makes it extremely convenient, and it's one of the reasons you've seen projects like Microsoft Teams take over Slack. Unfortunately, most decentralized compute projects today don't offer that, and that puts us at a huge disadvantage. And so what's next? Really, it's to start to recreate those offerings at a much lower cost. So it's to continue to upgrade our compute arsenal. It's continue to add distributed computing frameworks. It's continue to upgrade the system and continue to give it enterprise reliability. It's continue to add tools like databases, storage, AI/ML tools. And it's continue to even expand so more people with things like intelligence, more people can come on the system and build. Because I think that once we do this, we have a very real chance of capturing a huge share of this multi-trillion-dollar market. Because just imagine a service that offers everything that AWS, GCP, and Azure offer at 1/10 the cost. The possibilities are limitless.
So what's your timeline for beating AWS?
I think in very long timelines. I don't have like this needs to be done in so many years. If it takes 5, it takes 5. If it takes 10, it takes 10. If it takes 20, it takes 20. I think it's going to be an ongoing process, but it's something that we get closer to every day.
Because you were talking before about discipline and KPIs.
Yeah. I mean, that brings up something great. This is sort of a life tip that I've learned. And the idea is to focus on process, not outcome, right? And so I can control what we build, but I can't control how the market reacts. And so I know that what we're going to continue to see is we're going to continue to see the demands for compute rise. We're going to continue to see a supply shortage, and that's going to put more and more pressure. And as long as we keep getting better and better, the market will keep migrating towards decentralized solutions.
As well, can you share your view on the current state of the market?
So Warren Buffett doesn't comment on the market, and neither do I. And here's why. Buffett described the market as a drunken psycho. Some days it is very happy and prices go up, and some days it's very sad and prices go down. You just never know what it's going to do next. And academic research validates this through and through, that markets are effectively a random walk. No one knows where they're going. And I think too many founders get caught up on this, and they try to predict where their token is going to be tomorrow, and that causes them to lose focus. Now at IONET, we're focused on what's important. We're focused on building the best technology in the world. We're focused on delighting customers. We're focused on building a world-class team. Because if we nail the fundamentals, then the market will notice. And so do I worry about the market? No. I focus on something much more important, which is building an unstoppable business.
Yeah, it's important to have focus on what you do.
100%.
And how do you see the development of the industry in the next 5-10 years?
I spoke with an AI researcher, a top AI researcher actually, about his predictions for the market, and his answer shocked me. It was one word. He said psychedelic. And I can kind of understand why he's coming from where he's coming. We're just barely starting to touch the fringes of what AI is capable of. AI is acting as a digital assistants, chatbots, things like that. But tomorrow, we're going to see AI start to permeate every aspect of our economy. There's going to be trillions of agents automating everything everywhere. For example, agriculture. Imagine a world where smart farms are using remote sensors to monitor climate and coordinate water and fertilizer usage. Imagine fleets of autonomous vehicles that are plugging in with smart warehouses and commanding armies of drones to deliver you anything you need at any time. Imagine AI doctors everywhere monitoring a 24/7 stream of data from wearables and cross-referencing it with a global medical database. It's insane. And that doesn't even talk about the internal effects that AI is going to have, the enhancements on cognition. It's an insane world, and AI is going to effectively be the operating system for the new world, which sort of brings me back to that recurring point of when you think about it that way, it becomes very clear that the centralized cloud cannot handle this. They cannot even handle the limited scope of AI today. How are they going to handle a world with trillions of devices? And so while I don't fully know where AI is going to be, I do know that decentralized networks are the only way to get there.
And as well, do you use yourself a lot of AI agents?
I use AI all the time. I talk to ChatGPT probably 5 to 6 hours a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you talk about?
Everything in my life. I use it as a thought partner. If I have an idea, I actually spar with it. I will literally say, it could be something business related. I could say I'm setting OKRs. Here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? And it gives me feedback. And I say, I don't like that. Here's what you're missing. So I have intellectual debates with it. I do that on the industry. I'll talk about where I think AI is going. And what I do is I've trained it. I've literally uploaded all of my research on the industry. I've uploaded all my podcasts. I've uploaded all of our internal documents. I've uploaded everything. So it knows me. It knows what we do. And so I have debates with it. I use it as a therapist. I use it as a relationship coach. I use it as a personal trainer. I literally take pictures of myself and I say, okay, I upload these pictures and I say like, all right, where do I need to improve? And it'll say like, oh, you need your outer biceps to be a little bigger, and your side delts are good, and it'll help me write a program for that. Like, I don't think most people even, especially when you're using models like Strawberry, something fundamentally unique happened about 3 months ago with the release of this, to where AI went from being an encyclopedia to effectively being a reasoning being. And quite frankly, it's, you get in these conversations and you quickly realize it is one of the smartest entities that you'll ever talk with. And that's just today. Like 5 years from now, it's going to be nuts.
You don't have hesitations about gathering of your personal data?
I don't put anything really sensitive in there, but like, honestly, no, I do not care if OpenAI has a picture of me flexing in the mirror. I mean, so.
So do you use mostly ChatGPT, or do you use as well other LLMs?
I've toyed around. So I toy around with each of the LLMs. I do find I like Grok for certain reasons, but it's not as powerful as ChatGPT. I still find ChatGPT to probably be the most performant, but I'm always experimenting.
What are your thoughts on Perplexity and DeepSeek?
So that's actually a really interesting question. The big question about DeepSeek is, and actually it's a great question because it really sort of factors into what IONET is doing. DeepSeek was purportedly trained much, much cheaper than OpenAI, although there's a lot of debate over that. But what a lot of research is, or what a lot of people are saying, is that DeepSeek was trained on a variety of independent GPU networks. And what DeepSeek showed us is that you don't need these hyperscale data centers to train complex AI. And so what I think DeepSeek is showing us is that the market will trend more and more to models being trained and run on independent data centers, and maybe even one day personal computing devices or mobile devices. And so this really ties exactly into IONET's core thesis.
Interesting. And as well, what do you see in the recommendation of AI agents for crypto trading or generally for trading? What are your thoughts on that?
I think AI agents will take a very big role in trading. I think they already have. But I don't know what that really changes, right? I'm not a big trader, to be candid, never have been. I think it's very tough to make a living trading. And I think it's going to be even tougher to make a living with agents. But to a certain extent, that's kind of always existed. That's what the hedge funds have been doing with algo trading. And so these agents are just going to be out there doing pattern recognition. And, how do you beat an agent who can do trillions of calculations a second? I personally think that the only way to really get an edge is to make very big contrarian long-term bets long before the market realizes it. And that's, I've been an investor most of my life, a professional investor. And, I never went to the hedge fund side. I was always more on the PE, VC side like that, because that's how my mind is wired. I'm able to see trends long before they develop. As I mentioned, I wrote an article called Why You Will Never Understand Blockchains 5 years ago. You can find it on Medium, where I basically predict AI agents 5 years ago. That's how you get an edge. It's not by pattern recognition. That's my personal thought.
So you mentioned as well in the beginning that you invest into Bitcoin, Ethereum. Do you hold any other altcoins besides IO tokens?
Crypto is still searching for its killer app, but I believe we're getting close, and here's why. Crypto has made a lot of advancements in the past decade. DeFi, DAOs, NFTs. I've invested in a lot of these. I've been in meme coins, I've been in NFTs, what have you. But the thing that has consistently concerned me about Web3 is that we haven't yet crossed the chasm. We haven't enticed mainstream users, because today we've invested billions, but fewer than 1% of people in the world use crypto for anything else other than speculation. I think the number of internet users that have used DeFi is like 2 out of every 1,000 or something ridiculously small. And NFT users have cratered by 90% in the past 2 years. And so this really begs the question, when will crypto find a use case that resonates with the mainstream? Because if it doesn't do this, the technology risks disappearing into obscurity. And I think decentralized AI is that use case. It's really, crypto solves all of AI's problems. Depends solve the scalability problem. The blockchain itself solves the model verification problem. And permissionless access is going to be absolutely necessary for a world of trillions of agents. And so I think that crypto and AI are the perfect match. Bitcoin freed money, but decentralized AI is going to free something much more valuable, and that's intelligence itself.
So you're betting on decentralized AI tokens in this case?
I think, you have to, I'm betting on the industry. Now, anytime you invest, and this is sort of how I was trained as an investor, because I am a fundamental long-term investor. I start with an industry thesis, and then I invest, and then I figure out, okay, where, like if you look at the value chain in the industry, where will value accrue, and then I pick my investments there. But to be completely candid, my personal investments right now, I don't have much time, right? I'm running a very large company, and more importantly, I'm trying to get this message out there. So right now, I basically just DCA into a handful of blue chips like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Chainlink. Just every week, rain or shine, put some money in. That's kind of what I've always done. I've never tried to time the market.
And you mentioned meme coins. Do you currently hold any meme coins, or did you sell everything?
I was just toying with them a little bit, but like I said, I don't think you wouldn't be a very good founder if, like, I invested before I became a founder, but all of my cognitive energy is going into building this, because this is what we're building is just so unbelievably important, I think, to society. Because honestly, when you really start to understand AI and understand that this is the most powerful technology we've ever created, it's just a tragedy that a handful of companies may own this. Because we've already seen the bias, and you think, like, why does OpenAI get to dictate what I can and can't search? It's, pardon my French, but bullshit. And that's why, that's my mission. That's what I spend every waking hour thinking about. And so, yeah, well, I used to invest a lot. I don't have the time.
And do you have any investment strategy? When is the time to fix your profits?
Always been DCA. It's very simple. I set a certain amount that I invest automatically every week in a couple of assets. And quite frankly, it's like Buffett said, the best time horizon is never sell. And I've sold here and there. Like sometimes I do have like a sixth sense as to when the market's getting overly hot. And I remember, like, I don't know, maybe it was 2001 or 2020 back then, people start talking about things like, like when people start saying like this bull market will never end, you're like, maybe I should get more into cash. But because I'm not a trader, I don't really have that strategy. I just kind of keep putting money in, and over the long run, I think it nets out.
But sometimes in the crypto market, Buffett's strategy is not the best, especially what we've seen with many altcoins. In the previous cycle, they never returned to their all-time highs.
Well, that just means you made bad investments.
Like all these layer 1s, layer 2s, they're like basically in drop down.
So even when I invest in crypto, I think you have to keep in mind that this is already a sort of fringe asset class. And I think people get too greedy, quite frankly. Even if you just invested in Bitcoin, you will get a return that trumps anything you will get anywhere else. But the problem is people are impatient. They don't want to wait 5 years, 10 years to get the money. They need the money now with the meme coins. And so a lot of irrational exuberance. And honestly, I've been caught up in it too. My worst investment. And the reason this is my worst investment, because I didn't trust my gut. I looked at Olympus DAO, and I ran the numbers on Olympus DAO, and I realized it was a Ponzi. It wasn't sustainable. And I remember calling my friend up, very good crypto investor. And I said, Olympus is a Ponzi, man. And he said, yeah, but everything is. Just invest. And so I put money in and I lost it. And I didn't trust my gut. Now, there are times I did trust my gut. Like I never got in Luna because I just knew that like, do the research, like this is impossible. Like you cannot have an algo stablecoin. It can't exist. But that was an area with Ohm that I did not trust my gut and it burnt me. So you need to do, investing is very hard and almost everyone loses money. And you're up against some really smart, very powerful people who are doing this. And so if you do want to invest in meme coins, you really got to know what you're doing.
I would say with meme coins, if they became blue chips like Doge or like Pepe, Shiba Inu, they are fine like for the long term. Otherwise not. But as well, like I would say that crypto market became some kind as a whole like a meme coin. Like you mentioned your investments like Solana, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Chainlink. More or less like only Ethereum didn't perform that well. Otherwise, all other assets, they performed pretty well. But many others, like for example, Polygon, Polkadot, Avalanche, many other like super big projects, they didn't perform that well this cycle.
Well, the reason, so I mean, we can really get into like talking about investment theory now, but the reason I hold the assets I do, I think that if you look at every tech market in history, there's never winner takes all, but it consolidates down to like two, three players, right? Look at cloud computing. AWS, GCP, and Azure hold like 70% of the market. So I figure that we will see 2, maybe 3 L1s in the long run. Ethereum, in my opinion, is still the best bet. Actually, I think it's even better bet now because, you know, everyone's bearish on it. But it's always going to be Nike in my mind. And I think Solana's Reebok. The reason I always like Solana, especially when it's down, and that's the beauty of DCAing, it's naturally contrarian, right? Like now that Ethereum's down, more money's going towards Ethereum. When Solana was down, more money's going towards Solana. But the thing I like about Solana is it's actually the only L1, like everyone else is going modular, whereas Solana is like, nope, we're going to be a monochain. And a monochain has benefits. And so I think that Solana provides a very unique niche in the market that people didn't realize for a long time. And you know, that's when like obviously DCAing, I was more in Solana. Like you can read a lot of my tweets. Like I was very bullish on Solana when it's down. And right now I'm pretty bullish on Ethereum, mostly because I'm contrarian. Now, Chainlink, I just think it's a fundamental layer and it's sort of a play on DeFi. In terms of L2s, I have an outstanding question. I have asked people to explain how value accrues to the L2 token to me. Like I get why an L2 is valuable, but I don't get how it captures the value. Like to me, Arbitrum runs on Ethereum. Like shouldn't the value go to Ethereum? No one's been able to explain that to me, so I was never really bullish on L2s.
Yeah, L2s feel like not that narrative which is trendy anymore.
I think L2s make Ethereum more valuable.
Yeah. And as well, what are your predictions for Bitcoin price by the end of this year?
No prediction. My predictions, my thoughts on Bitcoin is that in 10 years, it will be more valuable than it is now.
Oh, well, it's quite obvious, but maybe you can put a price tag?
No, I'm not a trader. I would never do that.
Okay. Thank you for such interesting conversation.
Yeah,
for
thank you so much. Thank you.
What's happening with IO.net and the next plans, and as well sharing your use of AI and your experience with investing.
I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.